Welcome to the Business Development Podcast, brought to you by the Global Business Development Association, delivering the strategies and tactics to boost your career and corporate growth.
Welcome, everyone, to the Global Business Development Association's podcast called What is Business Development? And today we will talk about business development and a lot of great tactics in prospecting with David Lechosa. And David will give us his top 3 BD tactics from his book, which I can't wait to hear, and a little bit about the book. The book is called The Prospecting Playbook, Generate Leads, Build Relationships, and Close More Deals. It was just published in January, so it's hot off the presses. And this playbook, it will help you really deal with this common problem, struggling to find leads and building those meaningful connections and then closing those deals. If you have those challenges, then this is a great podcast for you, because we're going to jump right into it with the Prospecting Playbook, an ultimate guide to mastering the art of client acquisition, relationship building, and sales success. It's packed with actionable strategies, proven tactics, and step-by-step frameworks. This book will transform the way you approach prospecting, whether you're an entrepreneur, sales professional, or network marketer. The Prospecting Playbook empowers you to generate unlimited leads, foster genuine relationships, and turn cold prospects into loyal clients. And the book is written by David Lechosa, and David has really extensive experience, and I think a unique experience that contributes to the great tactics in this book, because not only does he have business development expertise, but he also has a lot of Salesforce expertise. And for those of you that may not know, although I'm sure a lot of you listening do know what Salesforce is, it is one of the most prominent CRM, customer relationship management platforms, that's used for managing leads, managing prospects, managing the business development and sales processes. And so David was a former Salesforce consultant, Salesforce admin, and so he has a lot of deep expertise on the CRM platform side of things. And he also has been a bilingual sales representative for Salesforce and as Salesforce analyst in those roles. So a lot of great expertise to bring to the table today. And so, David, thank you for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
All right. So, David, let's talk about a little bit about why you wrote the book.
Yeah, great question. So to give you some background on a little bit of the story, it was never on the bingo card to write a book. But one of the things that drove me to it is that, I manage a sales organization, and within our organization, a lot of the common concerns or questions that most reps sometimes have, and maybe somebody listen has a similar concern, is I don't have enough people to talk to. And so that question of, well, I don't have anybody to talk to, it's a complete lie, right? Because there's people everywhere, there's connections that you can make everywhere. And so I started putting together a document to help the guys, like, all right, this is how you go out prospect, this is how you generate more, more clients, more sales, more people to talk to, right? And then I started to get a pretty big document, and I was like, maybe I can just write a book about it, and maybe that can help not only our team, but could help somebody else. And then through some incredible mentors on how to write a book, because I didn't know how to do it or how to self-publish it and do all the things. I had a really good friend of mine that helped me and showed me the way. His name is Jonathan Laudermilk. They have an incredible program to help authors launch their books. And so they helped me do this. And within like 4 hours, I think, of launching the book, we were a bestseller on Amazon, which was stellar. I didn't even think, this was not on the game plan. So it was pretty cool to see.
Well, that's a great story about how you teamed up with somebody else that has the expertise to collaborate with you and jointly work on something to create a first-time big success, right? I mean, this is great. Amazon bestseller. So terrific. And tell us a little bit about how you got into the business development profession.
Yeah, definitely. So, little backtrack story. So, I'm originally from Spain, Madrid, Spain. I came here about almost 11 years ago. I'm in Tennessee in Nashville. And when I first got into the country, one of the first things that I did was sales. And using my Spanish, right, a bilingual skill set, I was able to get plugged in and did sales for a while. And then through that sales path, I ended up learning about Salesforce, which is the CRM that we use to track everything. And so I learned about the back end of that, and then I got certified, and then I ended up transitioning a little bit of my sales career into that CRM administration, Salesforce. I've done a lot of things in the Salesforce space, but admin, senior admin, consultant, BA, you name it, uh, in a number of projects. And so through that career over the last 10 years almost, um, I always had an entrepreneurial passion, even though I was in a very corporate environment. And I always had this fire, like, where do I put this fire, this entrepreneurial spirit to work? And again, through building relationships over the years, I had some amazing mentors that showed me the ropes and were able to essentially help me build our own business that we have, our own financial services agency. So I transitioned over from, I tell people it was very, for anybody that's a Salesforce admin out there, maybe they know this, but sometimes you don't have a lot of interactions with people. So you have, it's like a very gray cubicle, type of environment. And so I ended up transitioning out of that into financial services, started our own agency, my wife and I did, and we've been building that over the last 3 years. And it's been an amazing journey for sure.
Yeah, great. And so you served in a bilingual role in but as a Salesforce analyst and also in the consultative sales process. So I'm curious to learn a little bit about that, particularly for folks that um, may be in that position, or maybe just like they're contemplating come to the United States or another country. And
Mhm.
I suspect there are unique challenges in that kind of bilingual business development function, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's a different culture, right? So you have to kind of treat it a little bit different on how you approach the sales process. I feel like sometimes, especially in the financial services space, I'm also a part of the board of an incredible nonprofit organization. It's called ALPFA, the Association of Latino Professionals for America. So I'm the corporate development director there, but they're the main focus for the Latino community, I feel like, is as an immigrant, is advancement and opportunities, right? And so sometimes um, the sales process that you would have for the Latino community might be a little bit different than the American, U.S. community. And I think it's a very untapped market for a lot of businesses. And so opening that up, I think, is a huge thing. And obviously leveraging the skill set as a bilingual individual can help open up a lot of doors as well. So
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, you talk about building rapport and instant credibility with folks that you're talking to in the prospecting process. If
yeah,
you have that linguistic ability, and as you said, it's more than just the language. It's more than speaking the language. It's also having that cultural
yeah, 100%.
perspective to just understand those nuances of what's socially acceptable, what's not socially acceptable. Um, More importantly, how to pronounce your name properly in Spanish. So, so
Yeah,
for pronouncing your name in Spanish, I know it's David, right? But
yeah,
what
David, and then last name is Lechosa. Yeah,
Lechosa. So you're gonna, yeah. I used a little bit of the French pronunciation there, so I apologize.
that's all right.
I apologize. But so yeah, but so I think just those simple things like that too. Just being able to intuitively understand those key aspects where
Mhm.
you are building that instant rapport is great. Now, when you were supporting in that bilingual role, were you still in Spain or were you already in the U.S.?
I was here. Yeah, I was here in the U.S. and I was able to get plugged in with. They had a big, you know, market in Florida, Texas, California, and so I was over those territories, and I still do a lot of work in those as well. With the Latino community, because there's a lot of, especially Florida, Texas, and California, are probably the like three biggest, I think, states for Hispanic or Latino community, right? So yeah, that was primarily the focus.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. And have you found? I suppose there's a great amount of success that you've achieved by kind of having that specialty, right? I mean, people have identified the fact that you have that capability. Did you see that in your prior companies where they realize, oh wow, okay, David knows a lot about you know the Latino culture, the Latino community, the relationships, the networks, the language. More importantly, did you
Yeah.
find how did you find that kind of was it intentional on part some a part of those employers when you're in a business development function where they said, okay, we're just looking for specifically for Latino
Yeah.
experts
And
like
some,
you, or yeah,
yeah, in some roles is important, and some of the other roles it wasn't as important. A lot of the times, especially in the Salesforce, not as much in the business development. On the Salesforce side, it was all very not Spanish speaking
yeah,
for the most part. On the business development side, at the beginning when I first worked, it's a company called Comdata Fleet Core, massive. They sell fuel cards to trucking companies. So on that role, I was able to leverage that a lot on that space, to talk to like a lot of the Spanish speaking trucking companies, which was great. And then I feel like I've been using it a lot more over the last 3 years, because we're doing a big effort to help Middle America with their financial situation, and part of that is a big effort on my side is the Latino community. So I've been doing a lot of work, not only through the nonprofit with Alpha and all of that, but in my own efforts with our agency to really help the Spanish speaking community here. Um,
hmm yeah,
so,
with
so
their
that's,
insurance.
yeah, that's been
Um,
big.
okay, so yeah, that I really unique perspectives that you bring to the table. How did that kind of play into the way you wrote the book? Was there any kind of any factors in writing it that way?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of my background in there, so there's a little bit of that, and then I kind of walk through some of the things that have worked for us. Obviously, some of the things that may have worked for us may not work for everybody, right? So I'm just sharing my own experiences here, so take it with a grain of salt. But some of the things that have worked out really well for us is building genuine relationships with people is really the key when it comes to prospecting. And then I know you were talking about, maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but you were talking about three sort of key things that have helped us. Um, I talk a little bit about it in the book, but volume, clarity, and follow up have been the number one, or the three big things that have helped us. As far as volume goes, I share this story, but I heard from somebody is like if you were sitting at an arena right now and that's your business, you have this whole arena full of people, and then underneath one of the seats on the arena there's $1 million golden ticket. How quickly are you flipping the chairs? Right, you'd be like pop, 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 pop. You'd be like flipping chairs as fast as possible, right? So the first key component of the prospecting playbook is volume, to make sure that you're reaching out to as many people as possible to find your sales, right? Your target audience and everything at the top of the funnel. This is all at the top of the funnel. Uh, Clarity, which is the second part, is like, all right, you can have a lot of volume, but you can have a lot of junk volume, and really you want to narrow it down to your avatar and to your ideal prospect, because sometimes not every prospect is a good prospect, even though you think it might be, it's not. You have to really really narrow it down, to your specific niche, to your specific ideal avatar. So you got to figure out if you're talking to companies, what's the revenue, what are the industries, what are just narrow down all the key details for those companies you're working with. Do you work with people in logistics, people in manufacturing, people in the food industry? Just narrow down who your target avatar is, um, and be really really specific with that. So once you have that clarity, you can pump a lot of volume on that specific avatar. So that's kind of the key there. And then follow up, for most of people in the business development world, that sales don't happen until what, like 12 to 16 touch point, right? I think is the thing. So follow up is super important. So having that background on CRMs has really helped me understand the process of, all right, what doesn't get tracked cannot get measured. So you got to be really good about tracking everything and about staying on top of people, because situations change over the course of time, right? 6 months from now, it might not be a no. It might be a no today, but it might be not a no forever. So you want to stay on top of things and make sure that you're following. Because I mean, I've had clients that I've talked to, I mean, for 3 years before I closed any business. So if I would have let it go, it would have never happened, you know. And these are like almost five-figure deals and everything like that. So yeah, being really good with the follow up is huge. So volume, clarity, and follow up are probably the key components on that.
Yeah, it's interesting the sequence that you talk about those top three BD tactics, and they all interrelate with one another. You typically hear folks talk about clarity first, or you talk about ideal persona, ideal
Right,
avatar. Typically it's ideal customer profile, the ICP. You hear that a lot.
right,
That's what I wrote about in the business development body of knowledge. None of those is wrong. They're all correct. They're all correct, talking about basically the same thing, which is, you're in that stadium of, 30,000 seats.
right.
Okay. There's a high probability that if somebody could tell you there's a high probability that if you flip these seats over, you'll probably get to the ticket a lot faster, right? You'll get to that
Exactly.
golden ticket a lot faster. So you don't
Yep.
have to flip all 30,000 seats,
Yep.
um, and so I think that's what we're saying, right?
Yep.
Is, really understand that ICP. Now, a lot of companies are, you may start at a company and it's a startup, and they have kind of a vague sense of what their ICP may be, or they may have, a solid perspective. Maybe the leadership of the company has been in the industry for a while, and they say, okay, this is what our ICP going in position will be. But part of it too is, if you have a relatively wide aperture, and I think this is why you started with volume first, right?
Mm.
Because if you're starting from a blank slate, you start flipping the seats and you start to realize, okay, well, there's kind of a pattern here,
Yep.
and I'm starting to get a sense of where my real ICP is. And you do that, I think there's kind of a
It's
follow
a
through.
discovery, especially for new entrepreneurs. There's a discovery phase there. Like it happened. Sorry to interrupt. That happened to us as well, because like I was working with individuals, and as I was working with a lot of people, then I started to craft what my ideal customer is, or what my ideal ICP look like. So sometimes you may not have the clarity right at the beginning. So to your point, yeah, you may have to flip a couple chairs to start figuring that out. So
Yeah, and I think that's where, BD tactics, they fluctuate through at each phase of the business growth stages.
mhm,
You have the startup phase, you have the growth phase, then you have the more mature phases, and then you have the phase where basically the business starts to ramp down. And it kind of follows that bell curve profile. And in that startup phase, that's where it's important. We talk about the importance of the early adopters.
mhm,
And you're going into a new market, you're setting up a business, you're engaging those early adopters. And the early adopters are those people that have a pretty high risk threshold,
mhm.
um, and they're usually eager to experiment with new products, and they're critical because those people can then provide referrals and can lead to more sales that really boost you into that growth phase where you have product market fit. But
Yeah.
in that early phase, you're looking for problem solution fit. And that's where engaging early with those initial prospects and really listening to them and hearing their feedback. That's where it's a very powerful stage to really understand, okay, this was our going in ICP, or as you say, ideal avatar. But you know what? I don't think it is. We either we have to pivot completely or we have to modify 30%. We need to look at whether it's functionality or even not just the functionality or the product that you're providing, but also just your engagement.
Yeah.
Right?
That happens all the time. Yep.
Yeah, you're fine tuning that pitch as you engage, and you're really finding what that secret recipe is, so that you can learn to flip. Find the seats with the high probability of flipping up with the ticket, and then you can actually flip those seats up a lot faster too,
100%.
to be able to see what the outcome is. So great to hear how you kind of implement those varying perspectives of, okay, when we start off, here's what our going in position is, but we need to be ready to pivot. And I really like how you say, it's volume, it's clarity, and it's also clarity on the messaging, right?
Hmm.
Like and then the follow up. Let's elaborate a little bit on the follow up. Can you tell
Hmm.
us a little bit about some of the tactics and some of the methods that you use in the follow up?
Yeah, 100%. So this is a really big thing because follow up is where everything happens, right? Like very rarely, if you think from a consumer standpoint, very rarely the your product and the timing of you wanting that product is going to match perfectly, right? So when you think about it from the consumer's perspective, it's like, all right, we got to dial down whatever the timing is for that person, but we got to be in front of them enough for them to know that, like, whenever the timing is right, they're going to you versus going to somebody else, right? If there's like any competition that you're trying to win against. And so a big piece of what we do is, first of all, building a relationship with them at the beginning, right? Because I'm all about building relationships, and I do this both in person and online. Going out and meeting people all the time, going to in-person events, and going to all sorts of things, to like always building relationships and being a connector. And so one of the things to do is, helping others connect. And so a lot of times through that follow-up process is not as much as like, hey, I'm here, I'm still trying to sell you something. It's more of like, hey, I found this document that is super helpful. You should check it out. Or it's more of like, hey, you know what? I remember that you are in this business. Here's a referral for you, right? And so a lot of things of like giving more than taking. And so if you approach the follow-up process from that perspective, is much more chances that you're going to get the sale eventually, versus if you're always dripping of like, you hear it all the time. It's like, it makes me gag when people say, oh, I'm just touching base with you, or I'm just I'm just checking in, quick touch point or whatever. Don't say any of that. You know what I mean? Just worry about how you can add value to others through that follow-up process first. How can I connect this person to somebody else? How can I give him a free resource, a free video, a free whatever it is, to like keep being in front of it, but for like a lot more smooth process, instead of just like, I'm still trying to sell you something, right? So anyway, that's how
Yeah,
I approach it. Yeah.
lead with value. Lead with value, and it's value from a position of giving, and also empathy.
Yep.
Of, I understand what's important to you, so I'm not going to give you the same piece of information I gave the person right next to you.
Right.
I'm going to give you information and value that's tailored to your needs. That's been one of my most successful tactics that I've used in the past. I you talk about, you mentioned drip campaigns.
Yep.
Drip campaigns meaning on a recurring basis, you're sending some sort of material to your prospects. Ideally, it should be value. There's nothing wrong with drip campaigns.
Yep.
What becomes wrong with drip campaigns is when it's generic content, it's obvious content, it's not
Yep.
personalized. So what I've always tried to do in the past is, hey, I know this is important to you. Here's an opportunity that I see. Yeah, this is a possible contract opportunity for you, or here's a new relationship I can introduce you to that will advance your business.
Yep.
Maybe it becomes a
Those
new
are
contract
huge.
for,
Yeah,
yeah,
those are huge.
or maybe it's somebody that will be a great advisor for you. Maybe it's not a direct, but they could be a partner for you. They could be an
Mhm.
advisor for you. And
Yep.
then the third thing too is just news, market update. Hey, you probably, if you saw it, I apologize, but you might find this really interesting, and it should
Yep.
be specific to their needs. It's not it's not the one that you just send out to 1,000 people. It
Right.
should really be tailored to, hey, this is your specific incident. I remember we talked 3 months ago about this particular topic, and I was just reading and I found this article for you. I thought you'd really find it insightful. The
Yeah.
people love that. People love
And there's
that.
a balance. There's a balance too, because like a lot of, it sometimes is all about speed in this world, right? And you're trying to automate everything and automate, ChatGPT everything and automate everything. And so a little bit of human touch sprinkle in there, it's where the magic happens, right? You can automate a lot of the process and a lot of the drip campaigns and things, but like you said, kind of adding a little sprinkle of human touch and specification to that individual, that's where really the magic happens.
Yeah. And so let me ask you, we talked about volume, we talked about clarity, we talked about follow up. Is there anything you do differently in a bilingual environment? So will you shift any one of those between the two customer sets? I would suppose maybe with your ICP, your clarity, your messaging, right?
Yeah, the messaging definitely changes, to be a little bit more cultural. Sometimes, especially in the Latino community, in the Spanish community, there's a lot of more in person than online. So we
Hmm.
try to do a lot more events and things like that to connect a little bit more in person with those individuals. A lot of times, I'll tell you, on the nonprofit side, we do a lot of like food events. So like the Spanish community is big on like getting together and eating, right? That's a big thing. And so that's a lot of the how the relationships flourish and how clients happen, and things happen like that. But it's like we have a tamales competition, we have a freaking empanada competition coming up as well in Nashville. If anybody's in the Nashville area, welcome to come to that. But that's how you break bread with these people, you generate a lot of, you know, when you break bread with somebody, you hang out, it's a little bit different environment than it is a sales pitch, if you will, right? And then you can still in the one-on-one connect with your messaging and talk about business and what you offer to them, but in a more relaxed environment. So we found that helps quite a bit, as far as the different ICPs, right? But
Yeah, David, listen, you're making me hungry just listening to you talk, okay? And for those of you that are hungry for new leads, for new deals, for new prospects, folks, get a copy of David's book, The Prospecting Playbook. Generate leads, build relationships, and close more deals. There are a lot of tactics and strategies packed into the book, but today we talked about 3 key business development tactics that have been very successful for David. Volume, understanding that you will have to flip a lot of seats over in that metaphorical arena to find the winning client that you want. And as you do that, you have to have clarity about your ideal customer profile, or as David says, your ideal avatar, understanding who exactly is your ideal prospect and then your ideal customer, so that you can start to flip those seats over a lot faster, increase your probability of finding that golden ticket as you make your way through the arena. And then finally, follow up. And David mentioned you have to be prepared to follow up. I think, David, you said about 14 times. I think that coincides with what previous guests on the show have said.
yeah,
It's between 10 to 14 times. It's scientifically proven. And so you have to have that follow up. And when you do have those follow ups, the follow ups should come from a position of giving, a position of empathy, delivering tailored value to your prospects, and then to your clients when they become clients as well. David, thank you so much for being on our show today. Folks, again, the Prospecting Playbook, it's available on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle Unlimited for nothing, $0 right now. So that is a fantastic deal. It came out on the day it was published, and recently after it was published in January in Amazon's bestsellers. You can also get it in paperback and hardcover. David Lechosa, thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
absolutely. Thank you, Tony.
Oh, you're welcome, David. Come back anytime. We'd love to have you.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Business Development Podcast. Join our free community of corporate partners and business development professionals advancing the art, science, and ethics of the business development profession at gbdassociation.org.